For athletes who want to play college sports after high school, the recruiting process is a whole different ballgame. So much is on the line for the athlete. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, but for the recruiting coaches, it's routine. Dan Fitzgerald is a sports law attorney and is here to explain what you need to know before your high school athlete signs that letter of intent. Welcome, Dan. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Jocelyn.
And do you work with which law firm here in
I work with
Connecticut?
Updike, Kelly & Spellacy, right over on Church Street in New Haven.
Very good. And you specialize in sports law. Is this recruiting process affecting more and more of our athletes here in Connecticut?
You know, I think it is, Jocelyn. One of the things that people don't always realize is that recruiting can take many different forms. You have your Division I recruiting where the athletes are looking for scholarships, and then even Division II and III, there is recruiting, although there aren't any scholarships typically available for the student athletes. And
specifically, we're also seeing more girls getting these types of letters of intent.
Absolutely, especially with the rise of UConn basketball. You know, women's sports is, you know, as big now as it ever has been.
Let me think. Basketball, lacrosse, some of these soccer.
And certainly soccer.
Certainly.
Track and field.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So it's really boys and girls out there. All right. So what are some of the pitfalls that parents really need to know about when it comes to this type of recruiting? What do they need to be looking out for?
You know, I think it's important to understand that for student athletes, it's their only time they're going to be recruited, probably in their lifetime. These coaches do this every year. They're very experienced. Some of them have you know, proven techniques. If you're a parent, it's probably your first time going through it. And I think the key is to be educated about the process, to know what to look for. If you're not experienced in that process, to have some trusted advisors who are, whether they be coaches, athletic directors, whether it be a private recruiting service. Really, education and awareness, I think, are the two biggest issues for parents.
And so, what are some of the mistakes that people want to avoid?
Well, you know, at the Division I level, when you're looking for a scholarship, there's the National Letter of Intent, and that's received a lot of attention most recently for the legal issues involved in
Absolutely. I mean, NCAA in the recent years have really, I believe, gotten really tough on certain colleges because of some recruiting violations.
Absolutely. And the National Letter of Intent, what that is, it's a contract between the school and the student athlete that the student athlete will basically take his or herself off of the market and commit to one school. And that school commits to giving that student athlete a scholarship for 1 year. And, you know, there are pros and cons in that process. And if you're an elite player, that might not be a document you want to sign. And it's certainly not a document you want to sign without knowing its impact.
And the biggest benefit of signing these letter of intent for families, anyway, is that their athlete gets a full scholarship.
Absolutely. In many cases, it's a great tool to ensure that the student athlete has a scholarship, you know, for the next year to play college sports. In very limited cases where the athlete is an elite athlete, you know, there might be some reasons not to sign it or to think hard about signing it. You know, one of the examples being the National Letter of Intent doesn't allow the student athlete to change his or her mind if the coach who recruits the athlete leaves the school. And, you know, as you know, many of those relationships are really between the coach and the player. So, you know, you go to a school to play for a certain coach, and then you get there and the coach is gone, but the National Letter of Intent doesn't allow you to escape from that, really.
So what can families do to avoid something like that?
I mean, there is a release process, but, you know, the whole theme is just, you know, ask the right questions. You know, don't be shy about talking to the coach. What are your future plans? How long do you plan to be at the school? How long have you been at the school? You know, and really try to talk to other people who might know the coach and know the program to find out how stable it's going to be.
Also be sure to visit the school?
Absolutely. Yeah, visiting the school is important, and what I found personally very important is, you know, if you talk to enough people and you get enough people on your side to advise you, you'll probably find someone who knows someone at that school and can give you advice of, you know, what it's really like to attend the school and play for that particular coach.
That's right. You were actually recruited in high school for Division...
I played football at a very low level, Division III, Division II, and you know, that recruiting process was the first time that my family had been involved in it, and we did it the traditional way. You receive letters, you visit schools, but now you're seeing, with, as we talked about, the rise in you know, parents getting involved, specialization. It's so competitive that you find people being a lot more proactive, and I think you have to be proactive. You know, people calling coaches, visiting schools on their own, introducing themselves to the coaching staff, because there's so many players who want to go to school to play, you know, for fun, not for a scholarship, and that can be a way to get in there and to make yourself known. And then also, you know, the internet has a number of recruiting services. You can post your game films right on the internet for any coach to see.
Oh, well, that's a great marketing tool.
Absolutely.
And so when coaches come in and meet with the parents, what should parents really look for specifically that would tell them that maybe this is not the right person that they need to match up with their student?
You know, I think they need to ask, about the entire experience of playing for that coach. At a scholarship level, a Division I program, it's basically a full-time job for the student athlete. So what's it like? What's the history of previous players? How have they done academically? What's the transfer rate? What's the graduation rate? Those are the kinds of questions you'd want to ask. And there's always the personal element of whether the coach and the parents and the student athlete, whether they get along and whether they think there's a synergy there.
And you shouldn't be accepting gifts, correct?
Absolutely not. You're right.
That's the big...
No gifts, no money.
Especially if your athlete is looking into going to the professional level?
Absolutely. And as we saw with the Reggie Bush situation, it rarely has impact on the actual player, but it can. Reggie Bush just gave back his Heisman Trophy. I mean, what's bigger than that? And, breaking the rules can impact the player. And the NCAA and even the NFL, in football, they're looking to actually penalize the player now, not just the school.
That's right. They're really monitoring things. We want to give a special thanks to SportsWorks for bringing us these interesting Parents of Athletes segments every week. And Dan, again, thank you for being here.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.